Hello everyone, welcome back to Herlefeld, map for Farming Simulator 11, created by SourceWorks93 and Desperados, or do I have that backwards? Maybe it's Desperados93, I can't even remember anymore. Anyway, I am trying to bring in a little grass for my hungry cattle. Here we go. I have cut the grass here, let me see, on several fields, and it's been a little while since I've been in here, so I can't tell how far I've been. I, of course, did the patch right here next to the farm, and then I did this little teeny patch back here. I cut this one, and I cut this one here in the little triangle. So basically, everything kind of in the southeast quadrant of the map. And I've already off cam gone ahead to, we have a grass field in here, but it refuses to regrow. So I cut this one, I've cut these in here and windrowed. There's still a lot of grass to cut, and I think I commented in the last video, I'd like to, in giving the map a good try, at least try, each of the fields, which means tackling fields I probably otherwise wouldn't do. But I'm almost full, and I can't remember if last time if I commented on this. I don't believe I did. But you see these little bits coming along here, that's manure. And come to find out, it's a good old mod conflict, my own in this case. I had a mod that would allow for consolidating or windrowing crops other than grass, which we're pulling in at the moment. In the base game, the only thing you're allowed to windrow is either grass or dry grass, and of course dry grass is grass that's been tethered. And so I expanded it with a mod to include anything, and there's this pesky little side effect. And, I don't think we would even notice it were it not for the fact that this particular map has in it, the ability that if you take manure and you spread it on the fields, it's going to leave little bits, sort of like this here. And it's a windrow texture is what it is, if you look at the map and see the details of it. And so somehow my mod is grabbing that particular windrow. And even though it is defined as a windrow, it doesn't mean that it's ever treated as a windrow. I don't believe I could take a windrow and windrow the poop, on the field. But anyway, be that as it may, to quit having these little bits show up in the field, and the only way I can get rid of them, I think, is probably to drag a cultivator over it. I'm not going to do that, so it's probably going to just sit there. It'd be nice if there was a way to make it rot over time or disappear on its own. But I don't know that I'll figure out a mod to do that, so I'm just going to leave it there. But suffice it to say, I pulled my mod out, swallowed my pride, and I really don't need it in here anyways. The only other thing that there would be to windrow, would be all the straw in the fields, and that would only be if I get tired of baling it. And shoot, if I get tired of baling it, I could just as well cultivate it under instead of baling it, so there really isn't any need, to try to make it go quicker. But I have almost filled the whole trailer here. This will keep our cattle going for a little while. And speaking of the beasts, how much let's see, feeding trough grass. Okay, so we have 51,000 of corn silage. We have 7,000 of grass, so this is going to help, give give them something to eat. One thing I'm curious though is how much milk. Liquid manure. You know what, I am getting a little bit of manure here, a little bit of liquid manure that I can have, but how much milk? Doesn't it tell me somewhere? Yeah, see, I thought there... Yeah, I'm just not seeing it. Maybe, yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. There is a screen too. There it is. See, you know, I look at this 352,000 liters of milk. I'm going to get a lot of money. And I look at that and I say, 8 cows? Because, I mean, that's all that I have. Oops, I guess I need to go back. 8 cows. And that doesn't seem like a super amount. And yeah, they're hungry. But boy, that just seems like an awful lot of milk. So, you know, as soon as midnight happens, or whenever it, you know, calculates how much... Oops, I'm going way too fast. At some point, that's going to bring in a boatload of money. Alright, I am full. Now, can I get back to the farm going this way? Maybe I can. And of course, I have all the fences, or most of them, marked, including the ones I'm driving in between now. Here, I should probably turn on my beacon. Yeah, I can make that corner, but I don't know if I can make it up here. Oh yeah, I can drive through those. Or can I just, does this go straight up to the farm? Maybe it does. Alright. Okay, that'll be easy peasy. So, I almost think I gotta drive through the barn to dump it out. And I think I have to do that in here, so. Alright, we are back. Had a little problem there, and I'm wondering as to the cause. I've had it happen now a couple times, and basically what it is when we go by the tank over here, the game freezes. I attempted to come in here and come in this way, so I was jockeying, backing up a little bit to try to come in. All of a sudden the game froze, and I don't know, maybe it's just more Farm Sim 11 shenanigans, it's hard to say, but I think I'm going to try to avoid that area going forward, so, which is kind of a bummer. But anyway, let me drop this off in here, and I can probably see, there it is. Yeah, this is putting a lot of material in there. So, that'll give me something, okay, that'll give the cattle something rather. I'm gonna just back out, sorry for all the foliage. And I don't know if it has something to do, like, I don't want to do it because it takes resources, but there's a couple scrappy or scrap bale destroyer triggers that are hanging in midair here. You have triggers inside the barn to dump off, you know, material. You have a trigger on the front of this thing that detects traffic. You have a trigger over here to pick up this would be liquid manure, and I don't know if there is confusion, you know, in those triggers, or just what the deal is. So it could be the interaction in them is causing some kind of kerfuffle. What do I know? Anyway, I'll head back out to the field to continue on this, and you know, the last episode that I did, this also happened. So I was in I ended up making more than one video, having to splice them together later. And it's, I've talked at length about this. I thought my problems, with the game locking up were over, and so I think I'm just facing the harsh reality that this is one tough game to run, even on a modern system, and it's just a reality I'm going to have to deal with, even though I've tried to put some solutions in place, and I'll leave them there. But maybe there is something in the map itself, that is causing it to. So, anyway, I'm gonna just come out here and try to pick the rest of this up. I think I can go in the second setting. And some of this, you look at these windrows, I think it was Russell that was observing. He was observing me mow in the previous episode, and he commented that my mower was mismatched with the width of the windrower. And it's true, I can mow a much larger swath, and what I just reminded him of, in the comment, is this particular version of Farming Sim didn't have as many layers available. So in other words, you couldn't just take a big ol' width and windrow it down into a tiny windrow. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't keep the true amount of hay that was in it. So I've chosen to kind of leave, stick with a little windrower, which admittedly takes more time, but I don't know, it isn't bad once I get used to it, to try to do the field with it, and just to keep all the grass that I have. So, looking in here, this just isn't regrowing. It did in a couple areas. I'm gonna have to look into replanting. The thing of it is, though, is one thing I like in the grass fields is this sheen of green that's underneath is kind of neat. I guess I like it because if you go out in a hay field, in a pasture, in real life, you're gonna see kind of just a wall of green. You aren't gonna see drill rows. You aren't gonna see, unless it's freshly planted, you aren't gonna see a bunch of dirt out there. You're gonna see grass and green. So I want to be able to keep this, but yeah, I know I've talked about it before. What I don't know is if I come in here with a plow and try to replant using the means of the game, I don't know that it's going to keep the green sheen. I know it does that in Farm Sim, 15? I can't remember if 13 also does that, but I don't know that I've ever planted grass, in Farm Sim 11. So, one more thing to figure out. So, alright, let me see here. This field, I think I tried to... Oh, what am I going so fast for? I had the wrong speed. Only dos. Alright, there I'm off the... Oh, I think it even picked it up going backwards. Anyway, this one here, I sprinkled a few more windrows in the field as I wanted to see if it improved my yield. And it's going to take a while to fill, my trailer here anyways. But you may notice or remember that these are a little narrower. And basically, I'm taking one single width of the windrower and putting it on top of another single width. I think it must be just 2 widths. And I think previously maybe it was trying 3, or maybe it's, all I know is it's been a little while since I've made these in here, so all I know is I deliberately tried to have more windrows. And I think I can already see You can see the difference in coloration between here and here. So I know when you stack a windrow on top of each other, you get more material. So I think we're easily seeing that in here. Oops, I missed a little dab. But just how much more? Yeah, I think it did pick that up when it backed up. But it's hard to accumulate a lot of grass, to pick up, even to fill this. I missed some over here, and just to get every shred available. And what I really need is I may try to get another trailer here. I'll see if I can load one up. I think I have this field and the next one are windrowed. Don't know if it's gonna be enough to fill, but as soon as I get another full trailer, I think what I'll do is switch. I want to get a bale, a round baler. Actually, I do have a round baler, don't I? Or I did. Yeah, I think I do have a round baler. I want to get a bale wrapper, rather. So, this is something I've never explored before. It didn't come, with the base game for Farm Sim 11. But some enterprising modders made some bale wrappers. And I want to make some silage in bales for mainly one reason. I'm going to take them over to the BGA and see if the bale trigger in there works. I'm pretty sure it does. And, I had some discussion at length here in a previous video about how that whole trigger was set up. So I figured I would try to feed it some bales, which means I need to use the front loader. So I don't know how many of them I'll do. Really there's no advantage unless here, if I round bale this, it either has the value of hay. And matter of fact, I think if I sell it as a round bale, and I know I've talked about this before, according to the Lua code, the hard-coded Lua code of Giants, when you go to sell a round bale, you get $500, and if you sell a square bale, you get $200. Or excuse me, is it 300? Yeah, 300. $300 for a square bale, 500 for a round. But as anybody knows, it's plated. In order to make a round bale, it requires 6,000 liters. For a square bale, it's only 3,000 liters. So you can see there's a little disparity in value, when you make a round bale versus square. You just don't, you use up more material and you receive less. So really, in order to have value for the round bale, in order to receive value as silage, you either need a mod or something, sell point that'll give you value for the silage or something. And in here, of course, we have the BGA down there that Hetty made, so I'm going to use the silage. I think if I attempted to sell the bales, the round bales, I would still only receive, the regular $500 or what have you. So I assume I'll make more than I would for hay or straw bales. Oh, and that's another thing. In the original, or the coding for the Giants, I don't think it mattered if it was hay or straw or whatever. The sale price, was all the same. All one and the same. Well, we're basically halfway through, more than halfway through the field, and we're almost halfway filled, so, I think that did make a difference, making windrows a little tighter, and it just proves my point. When you have fewer windrows in this game over the same area, you don't receive the same harvest, in terms of liters. So even though it takes a little bit longer, you're better off, especially if you need it, to take the time to do a couple extra windrows. And with the little dinky windrower where we've been using it here, yeah, it's a labor of love. What can I say? But I do notice we haven't crashed again, so I'm thinking it's something to do with those triggers over there. Shoot, I don't know, maybe it's the whole cow meadow itself. I'd have to go back. There was several episodes when I read comments off a mod hoster on the map. I'm trying to remember if anybody commented about the game crashing or whatever because of, or right in that particular area. I don't remember offhand. Hey, we are 60% full. And here we go, some more. This one here, I opted to not even do the middle, kind of. So I might need to take a couple extra passes just to collect it all. Yeah, this is kind of how it was off cam. Just took a little while to collect it. And probably what I should do, instead of this huge trailer, that I have in here, I think it's only my impatience, that makes me want to spend more time in the field, collect more, so I don't have as much driving time. But by all rights, with smaller fields and such, I should be having using a smaller forage wagon here, or whatever you call this thing. Just trying to pick up the whole windrow. There's kind of a fine art in knowing when to turn. It's just a matter of keeping that little work area where the thing is pulling it up right over the windrow. And folks, we are almost 3/4 away done. So, I think by the time we get through this field, this field should, I'm hoping, finish filling our wagon. I had an interaction here recently on Discord. I was just looking at the trees out there that are back into a tree. I know I've shared previously in here. I went and removed, I think on every tree, I removed all collisions. I was trying to help performance as much as I could so I could get rid of the crashes. And just how much it's helped, I really couldn't say. But I've left it alone. But anyway, I had an interaction on Discord with a group that is dedicated to preserving mods and kind of the memory of these older games. I mean, it's preliminarily for Farm Sim 08, the very first version. But they've added 09, 11, 13. I mean, you can talk about any version you want, but the group is pretty well dedicated to these older versions of the game. And I don't know how many people are there. It's in the thousands, the people membership that they have, but there's more people than you would imagine are still interested in these old games. And it's a relative thing. I realize that. Far more people are going to be interested in the latest version and everything, but there are some folks, including myself, that are still actively modding for these old versions. So anyhow, there's space on this Discord group for modding questions and requests, and someone asked on there, they wanted some pine trees, maybe for a map they're working on or whatever. And so my first thought was, well, I could tell them about the trees, we have here on Herlefeld. So I I told him about them. I think I even sent him a copy of the i3D file, tell him where I got them. No, that isn't quite, what he was after. Not this style of pine tree, that is. So I looked up a couple other maps. There are several maps dedicated or having a significant focus area, even in FarmSim 11, on logging. And we wouldn't really get a cohesive mod for logging, really, until, a group made it for FarmSim 13. And I don't mean to disparage anything, people did for FarmSim 11. But let's be real. It's with the physics the way they were on this version of the game, it is really hard to handle logs or objects of any kind. It's just difficult. So, oh, hey, I'm full. So let's see if I can make it home without crashing the game. Turn on my bacon. Actually, let me do the responsible thing and save. It'll take just a second. Boom. But there are several maps, and I don't remember the maps off the top of my head. I've downloaded several of them. I've looked at them over the years, and so they have better looking pine trees and other kinds of trees in them. And so I referred him to some of these maps, and I looked at them, and some of them are pretty clever. The trees that look almost as good, as what we had later in FarmSim 13 and 15, but not quite. It's still under the old graphic system, that we have in here, obviously. Whoops. Drive straight. So, but it was just kind of interesting seeing those. Now, in this version, you couldn't cut trees, so these were trees that would just stay standing there. I have a feeling, somebody somewhere probably converted the mod that we had in FarmSim 09, where you could cut trees. Chainsaw mod, I don't know if anybody remembers that, but you could take down a tree, and the game would remember it. But see, in those days, it was only single player, so you didn't have the multiplayer syncing bit that you had to plan for, and so maybe it wasn't hard to. But I don't know. Maybe someone has it figured out for FarmSim 11, where you can take a chainsaw up to a tree. It was pretty rudimentary in FarmSim 09. So, you know what? Now I have. Alright, feeding troughs over 100. I don't know, shoot. Maybe I'll go get it. If I had $1 for... it's... The physics in here are just unforgiving. Fortunately, this tractor is strong enough it can bowl its way out. Maybe the next load I'll drop over in the silage clamp and turn it into silage for the cattle. I think I can do that with grass. So, yeah, if anybody's aware of... I don't think I've seen it out there. Maybe I should do some more search. I don't think I've seen a chainsaw for FarmSim 11, but it probably, with enough modding effort, could be adapted to it. But even then, it was pretty rudimentary. You just got to the area where the tree was, and it made some noise, maybe even add some particle animation. I don't recall all that, but it isn't like it was sawing on the tree, like we have eventually had with FarmSim 13, the mod, and then FarmSim 15 and onwards, where it was built into the game itself. But still kind of cool to have. But anyway, there are This game really, I mean, it's an imagination factory, right? I mean, when we come in here, we're basically dreaming and doing the stuff we do. And so some have used it, even in this early version, for the trees and for the logging. And I don't know how they did it, but a lot of the maps, and we did this too. It's if you've seen my Feldy series, one of the things I adapted to it late on was to put some logs in the map. And these were literally put in the map. They aren't their own objects. So in other words, when you come off a save game, the logs will all snap back to their original position. If you disposed of logs, they will magically reappear. But anyway, I didn't figure forestry was a huge part of the map anyhow, so didn't bother working on logs, in that regard. So I don't know what other people did, but a lot of these maps had logs in them, and they were kind of interspersed, amongst the pines or firs or whatever trees they were. And you could pick them up and I think haul them somewhere. The thing I couldn't really see is if there was a trigger, to deal with, and those logs seem like they were placed also in the map, so anytime you open a new save game, all the logs are going to be back out in the forest again. So yeah, it really wasn't. It would take some modding effort to have a clean setup for forestry, if you wanted it in Farm Sim 11. So anyway, we got one other, and I refuse to do this field in here. It's storing our little tedder over there, but there's just, I mean, it's surrounded by fence. So it's open, I think, on this end, but even the top end, I think, has fence capped. So that just strikes me as a nightmare to try to get in and turn around in. So, I'm gonna just take the easy route for where I can get my hay. Ooh, that's a little broad. Yeah, I kind of have two windrows going at once. Anyway, I think I've managed to keep from crashing the game once more, so I'm thankful for that. There is just something about that area I think I'm going to avoid. But thank you so much for coming along and watching. Hope you all are having a wonderful day. I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.